Welcome to Two Minds Today with your host, Charlene, authority in leadership development, and Haleh, an expert community builder. The pod all about best practices to get you noticed and ahead in your professional life.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Charlene. How was your week?
It was good. It's a good week. I feel like back to school. Both kids are in school now. Excellent. So that is pretty good.
Back to school is always exciting. I think even if you don't have kids, there's something about that heartbeat of
Mm.
summertime, school
Yeah,
time that like you carry with you through your entire life. Like even though
I
like
know.
you don't operate like that anymore as an adult, you still think about, oh, it's back to school time.
Yeah, there's a seasonal flow. We finished Labor Day.
Absolutely.
Some people, I guess, call this fall. It's 100 degrees by me, 108 actually, as I look at my computer.
Oh my God, how
Um,
do you function?
but I'm actually really intrigued by our title for today. It is Who Called Me From This Number? Because I am like, the queen of not answering phone calls. Even now, my iPhone actually has like slipped in who it is. So, like, American Red Cross, I'm a blood donor, calls me every 3.5 seconds. And so it'll be like American Red Cross. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. I'll schedule. I don't answer the call. I'm like, and reject, and I'll schedule on my own time. So in this day of like where we know networking is so important, and I'm not answering my phone to people I don't know or even people I do know, we thought we would dive into networking. And I know this is just full disclaimer on this episode. This is your zone. You're such a great community builder, and I'm excited to learn from you today.
Thanks so much, Charlene. Yeah, it's so true. I agree with you. Like, we're so reticent these days, not just to answer the phone, even to like respond to emails or text, any form of communication,
Yeah,
unless I know beforehand who it is. We don't want to
yeah,
connect with that person. But, okay, so we're talking about networking. And the reason we call this Who Called Me From This Number, because I think one of the biggest secrets to being a networker, to having a good network, is to be a connector. And normally, when you think about networking, you
yeah,
think about going to an event where you get to meet a lot of people. That's called networking. I think the ultimate networking, though, is in being a great connector, meaning that you hear of somebody who wants a florist and you introduce them to a florist. You hear of somebody who wants this kind of product and you introduce them to somebody else who you know is selling that kind of product or thinking about a business with that kind of product. And even though that doesn't seem like you're networking, the reality is then that people see you as the epicenter of someone who knows
yeah.
people and who knows everybody and can connect you to everybody. So all of a sudden you'll get a phone call from someone and you're like, who is this? I have no idea. But meanwhile, somebody else connected you now because they know that you know everyone and their mother.
Yeah. And I think and I've seen you do this, by the way, many times of connecting other people. And that I just want to say, I've heard a tip of if you're actually in a room and you're socially awkward, this is a great thing to do. When, like, if Helena and I were standing around talking and like I feel like I'm awkward and I don't know, I've run out of conversation, I turn to
Right.
another person and be like, oh, John, have you met Helena? And so a little tip for our introverts out there is like, it's also like an easier segue conversation, and then you don't have to carry the conversation as much.
So interesting. I didn't know that that was a trick, but I have
Yes.
recently started to think that I'm actually an introvert that has thought I was an extrovert my whole life because
Yeah.
I have always done that. And I
Mm.
do always feel very awkward in these major networking situations. So, like, maybe I found the trick without even
You,
knowing
d-
it.
you
But I
found
am
the
always
recipe.
connecting people. I'm like, oh, let me introduce you to so and so.
Yeah.
Let's come and let's talk to each other. But
Yep. I
it's
agree with
been
everything you said. So this one I could
fascinating.
speak to because I am socially awkward, and I'm a weird extroverted introvert, which we can get into at one time.
Absolutely. Let's talk about
Um,
that.
but I feel like hard work equals networking, right? It's like the idea that you can't get further if you're not really good at what you're doing. So like and that's really about building your brand, and less in a showy, flashy marketing way, but in a more of how people can rely on you way.
It's so interesting that you said when I first started as an attorney,
Mm.
my the head of our department, he was like fabulous attorney. Everybody knew him, incredibly like the whole town. I was in Philadelphia, and he was like the Philadelphia real estate attorney. And he said, "The heck with networking. Forget about going out there and being in the bar association and meeting so and so and connecting with the other one. Just do your job and do it well." And when
Yeah.
you're the top at what you do, everybody will come to you. So it might not happen day one or two. You might not seem like you've got everyone around you, but over 5 to 10 years, all of a sudden, like you've established how
Yeah.
great you are at what you do, everyone else comes. I think it's the real deal. It's authentic, Charlene.
Yeah, I think I 100% feel that way. And then I want to flag that this only works if you're using that in combination with telling your own story, telling your successes. If you're the kind of person, we've talked about this on a few other episodes, that never ever and takes the credit, that's never gonna work, right?
It's true.
So I think it works really well in tandem with accurately, taking credit, not taking more or less, or, and really being able to stand up for yourself. And also this really works when you're past imposter syndrome, because I think those are things that impede people's perception of you and your hard work.
100%.
But
Right. You
that's,
can't be putting down what you do. You can't be apologizing. You can't
yes,
be, taking more of a blame when there's a mistake when it's actually not yours. 100%. I
yes,
agree with you. That's a really good
yep,
point, Charlene.
yep. So I'm excited by this. Okay. So someone recently shared with me, essentially LinkedIn is your modern day networking. Like the LinkedIn page, and post page is like the equivalent of when we used to go, and I think maybe some people still do, go into big rooms and meet and chat. And I find this terrifying from like oh my gosh, I have to put myself out there on social media perspective. And also like, oh yeah, that is probably accurate from so many ways. I don't know. Have you thought about this at all, Helene?
Well, I could tell you that I have a very interesting comeback to law story. I worked in the big law world for a number of years, and then I left for about 15 years to do other things. I wrote a book, I worked in the nonprofit world, and then I tried to come back into big law. Charlene, that's almost an impossible trek back. It just really
Yeah.
very rarely happens. And I was able to do it. And the reason I was able to do it was because of LinkedIn. What had
Wow.
happened was when I originally got into LinkedIn, I connected with everybody that I knew from my previous life. So I'd gotten into LinkedIn, this is 10 years, right? At least 10 years before I'm looking to get back into law. I had gone into LinkedIn and I linked with people that I knew in my, from my days in not in my law firm days, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
wasn't looking to do law. I wasn't interested in it. I was like, all right, if LinkedIn it's the world of people I know, I'm going to connect with everyone professionally. Meanwhile, I had connected at that time with the head of my department, who was and linked, so he had seen over these 7 years the fact that I'd written a book. He saw that I was like involved and out in the world. He saw that I started going back into law. And
Mm.
so when I applied in the big firm world to come back, and I said to him, "Hey, do you mind pulling my resume out of the pile?" Like I did reach out to him. He's like, "Of course, I've been watching you over the years. I saw that you wrote this book." I was shocked. I was shocked that he even but I guess I came up on his stream occasionally. And
Right.
so it reminded him of who I was. And I was actually in that. So 100% network.
Yeah.
And I got back in. I got back in because of LinkedIn.
I've heard social presence. So now, all these reality shows. So even the cooking ones. So there was somebody who was posting about, they went on one of the I think it was a cooking, insert whatever the reality show is about here. And now they're casting based on your Instagram and influencers or whatever it is. So if you do not have a social presence, you are probably not going to get cast on one of these reality TV shows. And I think it is, it's just sort of this world we're living in. And small tip, I think you need to have 500 connections. Connect with us on LinkedIn. But it's, and then they said it's 500 plus is all the same, but it's, yeah, I think it's just sort of a matter of fact of how we network. This is just a part of it in 2023, and I wonder if there's like just a little bit of like social norming around what I would think are really cringy posts, like, oh my gosh, congratulations, but like I think that's that social norm is when you're there. Here's what I would say, and tell me if you disagree. Agree. There's different rules of engagement when you are at a networking event than what you would probably do in your own social life, right? You're going in to this room in real life, in real person to person. You're going to, and people are going to be pitching themselves, and it's sort of like this acceptability. And versus like when you're, standing in line at your kid's soccer game, it's a little bit different. And I think LinkedIn is that place where people know you are going and you're putting your best foot forward and you're presenting yourself a little bit. So I wonder that.
I do think that there is an industry specific behavior with this and also generational specific behavior.
Yeah.
So, and so that makes it a little bit tricky, right? And my advice is always try and keep it as professional as possible when you're on LinkedIn, and try and have some kind of a presence, but not too much. You have to be careful because certain industries would find certain posts not really classy or professional. And so it's a little bit tricky.
Assume everybody knows everything, because like random people I barely know will like something and it'll flash up, this person liked this. So just be super conscious of that.
Right.
All right. Our networking. Who called me from this number? So let's talk about how we feel networking is coming around in 2023. So Hala, take us for the wrap up.
All right. So, hey, be a connector yourself. Do the good deed, connect people to each other. It's a round world. It'll come back and you'll see that that's become a form of networking for you. Be authentic as always. I think this is Charlene's like go-to line. I try and like internalize it and bring my inner Charlene to everything. Hard work, really at the end of the day, is the most authentic form of networking. It might take a little bit longer to build, but it really does pay off. And the last, modern day networking. Get on LinkedIn, get on social media, have a presence. It is the equivalent of sitting around in a big conference, at a meeting and bringing lots of people together. So you could do it even from your own home.
I know. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And as always, we share that try and learn a little bit more every day. And we'll see you next time.
We hope you found our discussion informative and thought-provoking. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast to stay up to date on the latest insights in the industry. And remember to share this episode with colleagues and friends who will find it helpful. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye, guys.